My US. Jasdeep needs no introduction. She is an international environmental lawyer and a policy specialist. Presently at UN Habitat, she is leading the global initiative on addressing the climate change crisis in cities by bridging the gap between urban policies and science. She has more than 14 years of experience in international development and environmental law. She graduated from GLC, completed her LLM from Yale Law School, a BCL from Oxford University, and a master's in public policy from Harvard. She has served humanity across 5 continents. Since this is going to be an interactive session, I request everyone to turn their videos on. Throughout the session, I will also be posting a few links in the chat box where the students are expected to vote on a few questions, and I request everyone to participate to the greatest extent. Without further ado, let's begin. Over to you, Jasdeep.
Thank you, Sanchi, for that introduction, and thank you for organizing this seminar. It's always a pleasure to speak to the students. I think, virtually is very different because I've often come back to college, but it's really, nice of everyone to join on a Friday evening after work, and we are very well aware of that. So thank you. And why don't we start with the Mentimeter question before I present?
Yes, ma'am. I'll send the question on the group chat. Everyone can click the link sent in the description and it will redirect you to a question.
So basically, do respond to the question, everyone, and then we can just see the, results online. It's just new technology, having virtual meetings. So please respond and then just click submit.
I'm able to see a few responses on my screen. I
Okay, so thanks for responding. So this is very interesting. Majority of you, and please continue answering if you haven't, do like the co-curricular activities at GLC a lot. And some of you are also spending a lot of time studying the law. And a few of you are either working day and night or you are doing something else. Maybe sometimes even more interesting things than the GLC student life. Well, all is fair enough. So I'm going to share what I did at GLC. So yes, I was also a lot into different co-curricular activities, particularly taking part in the national moot court competitions. I did that a lot, which really interested me because I felt that I could really apply the law to a practical case study and also develop my analytical skill set. And I was also, trying to particularly learn those subjects which sort of interested me, and that went beyond just studying, corporate law, because I felt that I was passionate about other subjects. And yeah, so this is a photo from, my time at GLC with my colleagues, my teammates, where we went to Nagpur, we won a national moot court competition. So happy times indeed at GLC. And also, I made it a point to reach out to the alumni from our college and also to the seniors, because I was very interested in understanding what were they actually doing, both after graduation and also during law school, because I thought that gave me a better perspective on, what were the career opportunities. And I just did one internship in the entire 5-year duration of my studies at this law firm, which you would know, Mola and Mola. And that was it. And so really, I think, I wanted to develop professional relationships more. I wanted to identify professors who could provide me with academic references later on. And so when I graduated from law school, my first job was not in a law firm. No, I did not continue with Mola and Mola, but I got selected to do a clerkship in the Supreme Court in India. And I would just say that that has been the single most important career decision I have taken till date. And I really found my purpose, in life through the clerkship, because for me, the clerkship exposed me to issues in our country where, law had to be seen as a tool to really improve the quality of life of the most vulnerable and poor people in our country. And it also made me very curious about the comparative law aspect, because Justice Sinha, who you see on the screen here, who passed away 2 years ago, was my judge during the clerkship. And he was a jurist, a very well-known constitutional judge. And he also became my mentor later in life. I think for me, really, it made me very curious to understand how can comparative law, help the cause of justice in India. And so I think the main takeaways from, my first job out of GLC, because it was not the normal job which, my other classmates took up, is that I think nobody likes uncertainty. And, we want to please everyone because we want to follow the norm, we want to please our parents and the family. But I think it's always important to first ask yourself, what are you passionate about? What do you really, really want to do? Because you have your entire life ahead of you. And are you then willing to take risks, right? Because I don't think anyone should be taking up a job offer just because that's the only certain path you were told about and you know of. I think it's very, very important to do a little bit more introspection and of course develop the relationships where they really matter as a young graduate. I want to go back to another mentee question before my next part of the presentation, just to sort of get your views on what do you think about this. Sachi, could you show the mentee question now?
Yes, ma'am, I'll do that. I have shared the link in the chat box again.
Actually, I think that's the same question as before.
Okay, give me 1 minute.
Sure. And in the meantime, I will start with, what I did after my clerkship at the Supreme Court, which is, I got accepted to Yale Law School. And of course, getting into Yale Law School, as all of you know, is really hard. And there was just one student, that was me, from India, who got accepted to the LLM program. And I felt that the reason I got accepted was because I really had a strong statement of purpose, and it fitted well with the program's objectives. And so, I basically studied a lot of comparative and constitutional law at Yale. And the teaching style which we have at Yale is quite different from, the so-called Socratic method at GLC. So the way we were exposed to different ideas from across the world, and the multidisciplinary background of both the students and the faculty really created an impression on me on the public policy interface with law, particularly because, a lot of the courses that I was taking and the thesis I wrote, which was looking at the Supreme Court's engagement with the executive branch back in India, and comparing it with other Commonwealth judiciaries, it made me very interested as to how public policy was interacting with law, and what would a career in public policy as a lawyer entail. And so, as you can imagine, when I graduated, I decided I wanted to come back to India and not work in a law firm in New York. And of course, there was very little precedent for, working as a public policy professional with the background of a lawyer in India. So when I returned back, I got the opportunity to actually work for the Prime Minister's office, where I wrote a report on constitutional amendments based on the manner in which the legislations were being implemented or not being implemented at the ground level, and also the kind of governance framework we should have for better implementation of legislations because of the impact on, various problems in public policy, including access to food, access to water, access to, the courts in general. And when I had that experience, it created a very deep impact on, my my career, which I decided at that time that I really do want to work in international development, because this is really, given my personality, I would be a very good fit in. And so, the main takeaway for all of you would be that, nobody likes ambiguity, right? And of course, particularly when you don't have a precedent, in your own career path for such an ambiguity. But, if your intuition is telling you to have a change in career, I would advise you to first try, this new path that you want to venture into, before you actually get into it as a full-time career, because that would help you to either validate your decision, or to confirm that this is not for you, and you should stick to the career that you have. I'm looking at the Mentimeter results, and this is very, very interesting. What kind of a career would you like to have? And yes, majority of you mentioned that I'm still trying to figure this out. I was in the same boat as you, as this proportion, because I knew already in law school that, working in a law firm would not be something which I would be motivated to do for the rest of my life. And, but I didn't know what else was there, till I started, exploring options through our seniors and talking to more people. And of course, going to graduate school with a sense of why, and doing the clerkship. And I'm also very, interested in this result, on that you do feel passionate about something else. And this doesn't fit in our conventional law legal profession category. And it's absolutely okay. In fact, I would highly encourage you to explore this passion of yours, through different means, right in law school. You don't have to intern in another law firm or with a counsel in the court. This summer, you can look at interning wherever you think you can get more experience in the area you are interested in. And so this is all very interesting. So thanks for sharing. So when I decided that I wanted a career in international development after my experience, I decided I wanted to go back to graduate school again, not because I like to study so much, but because I really thought that I needed to study public policy as a student, and also explore certain areas of law, which would become my strength in this career. And so yeah, basically these photos are from my graduation time. So yes, Hillary Clinton, who is also an alumna of Yale Law School, she did speak at our commencement. So this is a photo of Hillary Clinton. And so I first went to Oxford, and I was very fortunate because I got a full scholarship from Harish Salve. And it basically, because I didn't have a financial constraint on me, it was a full paid scholarship, just as at Yale Law School. I could explore subjects in international environment law, human rights, and jurisprudence, which today are my areas of expertise as a development practitioner. And when I went to Harvard Kennedy School, so I didn't go to the law school, but Harvard Kennedy School is the school of government at Harvard. My focus was basically, developing the soft skills needed to advance my career in international development. So I took a lot of courses on negotiation, on communication, on leadership, on stats, economics, on development studies, on water studies. And simultaneously, I spoke to a lot of development practitioners, students, but, coming from very interesting backgrounds in international development and also in other fields, including the military, of some heads of states as well, from NGOs, etc. And all that, really helped me to sort of understand if, a career in international development would suit the kind of personality I had, and whether I could be so global and work in such demanding situations, as these development practitioners work. And simultaneously, I was also identifying the right faculty to, get professional references for these applications. And I really took the opportunity to gain more insights and basically to develop my practical skill set and become a very attractive applicant in international development by doing a number of internships. So after Oxford, I clerked in the High Court of Hong Kong and was assisting on a case on human rights, and constitutional law issues for the Chinese immigrant workers coming into Hong Kong. And then I did an internship for an international organization in Paris during my summer between my 2 years at Harvard. My thesis at Harvard was for the Office of the Prime Minister, where I drafted a legislation to address the water conflicts in India. And I went for a fellowship to Australia, to analyze a legislation to address the climate change crisis, the drought crisis that Australia was facing. And I, also was selected by the Indian government to represent the youth of India at the G20 summit in Russia. And so basically, I was able to build these skill sets while still in school, because school went on for 3 long years for me. And, I was able to get professional references, for my applications, and also build a network. And yes, this is a photo with my parents, who very happily attended my graduation at Harvard Kennedy School. And it's always good to have support of your family. And they've been extremely, extremely supportive, with all my decisions. And, the main takeaways from my experience at graduation school is that, graduation school is a commitment, right? And it is going to take you out of your zone of comfort, if you open yourself up to the very different opportunities that come by. And, if it is done strategically, if you spend your time strategically in grad school and with a purpose oriented goal, then it can be career defining, and it can also shape your personality, I believe. So I would say, just don't be a follower when you are applying to grad school. So don't go to a grad school just because somebody else went there and now they are working in a law firm and they are being paid well in New York, for example. I think you genuinely need to feel the need to advance in your next stage of your career. And I think it should also simultaneously satisfy your curiosity for advanced learning of the subject that you want to study there. And if you're not struggling when you're writing your statement of purpose, then I would say that school is a great match for you. That should really be the criteria. And it's absolutely okay to defer a grad school if you do not get financial assistance. So either the grad school will help you if they really want you. For example, with Yale, once they had selected the students, it was their responsibility to finance us, to provide us for our living expenses and tuition fees, because they really wanted us. And if they are not willing to, provide you with financial assistance, then they should be okay with allowing you to defer. And that's what I did with Harvard. I deferred for a year. I could both go to Oxford, and also at the same time, I could, apply for different international scholarships to study at Harvard. And I would say that your time in graduation school is much more important than, your decision to apply to a particular school, because, you would want to network there. You would want to learn the subject, the law, if that's what you're going for. You would want to leverage opportunities for your next career move as well. So, and, the connections you build in grad school are lifelong connections, and they are going to matter in life. One more thing I want to speak about is, the importance of investing in mentors. So I believe that the kind of career I've had till date, and the schools I've been to, it would not have been possible if, I had not identified people both from GLC graduation schools, and also from the stints I did in different organizations, who have stood by me in the most tough times, who have provided me with professional references and academic references, who have guided me because they've had the same career, who've reminded me of the values I stand for because they know me as a person. So I would really recommend, I mean, of course it is investment. Of course, there's a lot of energy, you have to put in, and we are all busy people. But I would strongly recommend that, start identifying people, professors included at GLC, who are going to be your mentors, because they really do matter. That said, we do have a mentee question, which I think Sachi is just going to share the link in the chat box. I am also looking for any questions you have. Please feel free to drop the questions in the chat box as well. Very open to sort of stopping in between to also answer your questions. And of course, we are happy to take questions later on as well. And in the meantime, I will go to the next part, which is, okay, so I got all these, different degrees from these universities, and then what I did. So basically, as a fresh graduate from Harvard, I was very persistent. I was willing to learn. I was really willing to push my boundaries. I was willing to be posted in any part of the world, in any remote part, in any country of the world, including in a war-torn, conflicted area. And I was willing to pursue any opportunity that opened up, and I think I was also very focused on, providing applications which were able to sort of, showcase my value add in the international development sector, even though I was a fresh graduate with all these internship experiences and the clerkship, and the work in the Prime Minister's office I had already done. And so my first job, out of grad school was not actually with the United Nations. So sorry to disappoint all of you, but it was actually in the private sector. I decided to work in a consulting firm, and I did a lot of projects for them, with international organizations. So I worked on water security issues in the Asia region for the World Bank, and sanitation issues for the Gates Foundation in Latin America, Africa, and Asia. And I really believe that, those kind of consulting assignments enabled me to, build my, skill and expertise in international environmental law and public policy, and become even a stronger applicant to consider applying for the UN. I'm very happy to see these results, actually, because I think everyone is thinking about one global problem at least. And yes, a majority of you, consider lack of equality globally a problem, and it is linked to poverty. And yeah, a lot of you also being the youth of our generation, I also see, employment a challenge. Yes, the opportunities with that. Climate change, I think a lot of you are still not convinced, is a global problem. That's very interesting. I might be able to change your perspective on that. And COVID-19, at the same level as climate change. And then you also think of other global problems, and please put them in the chat box. What are the other global problems you think of? Would be very interested. So yes, and international development is, about these problems. So I really do want to, explain to you, what is international development. So this is a practice which seeks to develop and implement sustainable solutions. So solutions which can actually stand time, can stand election change, government change, to problems which are faced by countries with a focus on the most vulnerable people, whether, these people belong to the youth community, or they belong, to as women, or the disabled people. But basically people who don't really have access, to all the regular services just because of their social and economic situation, and really come from countries where it becomes even more difficult because of also the kind of environmental situation and the political context, or just the development trajectory that we are on. And so examples include all the global problems you have identified. So it includes climate change, water scarcity, rule of law, health, pandemic, economic development, displacement, gender equality, food security, and more. And so how did I enter the UN? And now comes the question. So one thing you will hear from people, and I am aware when I was speaking to the students from the college before, that we've not had a lot of students who have entered the UN. And I think this is something which everyone wanted me to address. How did I enter the UN? I think nobody has one particular story. Everybody has a very unique story, and you will hear different people giving their own narratives on how they entered the UN. I think in my case, what basically happened was that my resume, and I had actually applied for an internship when I was at Harvard to the UN in Kenya, And they never came back with a decision until I graduated from Harvard, and then I was already working. And so they basically, that team, had a opening. So it was, right timing for me. And that happened after 2 years of me, putting in my resume for an internship, and also a manager who seriously, thought of me as a candidate with a lot of potential to actually add value in his team. Um, and also, of course, just luck, I think, I do want to stress that this was also because I think I had developed a set of skills by that time, which the UN does consider very valuable, and, where they feel that a young professional, when entering the UN system, can grow and develop as well. There are different ways of entering the UN. You can enter in as an intern. In fact, I do have one of my interns on this call as well. And Sai, thanks for attending. And, so it could be through an internship, it could be through the Young Professionals Program, it could be through a consultancy, but with consultancy, you need a little bit more experience. It could be through, being a youth representative, or it could also be applying as a staff, but that's really at the lowest position possible in the UN. And so the kind of work that I have been doing in UN, so currently I work for the, agency which specializes in the global problem of a rapid urbanization. So, cities are rapidly growing, and so there are lots of problems associated with that. And this agency is called UN Habitat. And so the kind of work I've done with UN Habitat includes, developing public spaces, including in Mumbai and Pune, on ensuring access to these spaces for the slum dwellers, and also access to these spaces for women who are waste pickers in the city of Pune. And, I wrote a paper on access to public spaces, human rights, which, got cited in the UN General Assembly recently. And, when you work in a big organization like the UN, and sometimes you feel that change is very slow, when you feel that you've contributed in any way, it really, helps you sort of validate your own choice or decision, to work for the UN. So that feels good. And then I've worked very closely with mayors to sort of include their voices in something called the Sustainable Development Goals, which is basically a charter of all the human rights and the different services which people of the world should have. And so, this photo is from the day when the SDGs were adopted in 2015 in New York, and where I had organized a meeting for these mayors who had helped with the urban goal in the SDGs. And this is Obama speaking at the General Assembly there. And then currently I'm working on a global initiative where we are looking to address the climate crisis in cities, using the power of innovation and the power of youth and the private sector and the mayors, and identifying the research gaps, so as to build the city's, resilience or strength in, addressing the climate crisis. And UN is really large, and UN has, a number of specialized agencies. And so I've also worked for another specialized agency, which is called the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. And this is based in Bonn. And basically, the work I did at the Climate Change Convention is related to helping member states in negotiating the implementation of the Global Agreement on Climate Change, which is also known as the Paris Agreement. Some of you might have heard that even the Indian government is a part of this agreement. And these are very difficult conversations to have, and my work experience, they're basically related to sort of navigating issues between developed and developing countries, on a lot of constitutional law issues as well, I would say. So, and human rights issues. So, on equity, on justice, on common but differentiated responsibilities based on the nation's, trajectory to economic transition or the development they've already had. Um, and so that was also a very, interesting place to work at. So basically, when you look at the UN, you need to realize that we have a number of different organizations within the UN, and these different organizations are leading on a particular topic, a particular global problem. And so, based on what your interest is in what area, like I identified my area as international environment law and policy, and that's where I've been contributing in these different agencies. And so so that's how you need to sort of also look at which areas you have an interest in, and how do you sort of start building your expertise in that. So what are the skills which are needed for having a career in the UN? See, the first thing is that UN is very political, and for obvious reasons. We are working with member states, 196 member states, right? And there are very high stake issues, that these national governments are dealing with, but now at a global level. So there are lots of emotions involved. And so you have to basically, develop soft skills. How are you going to communicate the mandate? How are you going to negotiate these difficult issues? How are you going to broker agreements between different countries? How are you going to be diplomatic even when the going gets tough and you face some frustration that things are not happening or agreements are not being made? Or so I think if you have expertise in a particular area and you are recognized, as an expert, I think it makes you a very attractive candidate. And I think having an interdisciplinary skill set. So you remember at Harvard, I did a bunch of these, subjects, which you would be like, why put in the money and time to be studying communication or to be studying leadership, right? Or to be studying negotiation? But exactly these are the kind of skills, which are so important, interdisciplinary skills. And, so because you are going to be put on a job where every day is a different day, every day you are being exposed to a different task. And you have to become comfortable, with being the jack or Jill of all the trades. And project management is very important, because you are going to be coordinating, internally. You are going to be organizing a lot of workshops and meetings. So you have to be comfortable sometimes not using your analytical skills, but more of your logistical skills, because yes, there is a lot of, work around logistics and administration to do as well. So you won't always feel as a lawyer. And you also have to be comfortable in sort of, moving around the world and being posted to different duty stations, at least early on in your career. And, sometimes in war-torn and conflicted countries. For example, in my case, I have already lived and worked in 18 countries in the last 14 years. And I have traveled on missions to over 60 countries already. And so I would basically say that, if you and the UN competency framework is also very important. What do I mean by the UN competency framework? So it's basically a set of skills which has been identified by the UN, which you need to showcase to be accepted into the UN. So, this includes the soft skills I've been talking about. So this includes, sort of having, being able to work in a team, being accountable and responsible for getting the work done, having a strong network of, partners for the professional lobbying, delivering on time, working under pressure, and also showcasing your expertise in a particular subject matter of relevance. I've not always worked in the UN. I also sort of want to share with you what are the other. So I'm going to stop over here because I see a couple of questions. So one question is, how did you identify consulting opportunities after graduation school? So thank you, Akshata. So I did not identify consulting opportunities, but rather I identified the organizations where I would work in international development. And in international development, you have firms called consulting firms that are actually implementing projects by working very closely with international organizations themselves. And so I worked in one such private sector consulting firm in New Zealand after graduation. And so I worked as a full-time employee, and I worked in the private sector, but they were implementing projects as consultants to the World Bank, to a big NGO called the Gates Foundation. And if you talk about identifying consulting opportunities after grad school, because if you work, for one of these organizations where you might be named as a consultant, you're still working for an organization. You're not a freelancer. You're not working independently. But if you are thinking about working independently as a consultant, but that's something that can only happen after you've had about 10 years, 15 years of work experience, you've established yourself as a development practitioner, and then you've opened your own consulting firm. But that is a possibility, and a lot of people do that. But after a number of years of experience, which they've gained, and they've got a network. So I hope that answers your question. And Siddhant, yes, rise in corruption and its laundering. Yes, that is also a big problem. And I think that is a problem which, in every big issue that we were looking at, in also implementing projects on the ground, corruption is really a major problem. So what are the other career opportunities in international development? As I mentioned, there is no linear path to a career in international development. I think, it is also normal to feel, change is very slow as a young professional, because we want to, see things done. We want to see, how we are really contributing to advancing a change on the ground. And large international organizations can obviously be very, very bureaucratic. So I think it is very strategic to make your way into the UN by gaining experience, in other organizations in the sector. So for example, you have NGOs, you have the private sector, you have also startups, you have foundations, and you have the national government. They are all also working in the same sector. And I also feel that it's easier to get an entry into the UN if you already have the kind of relevant experience, and also you can come in at a more senior role if you have gained experience beforehand elsewhere. And so I also took a break from the UN for 3 years, and I think when I took a break, I felt that I had a voice and I could add immense value, in the field of environment, cities, innovation, and diplomacy, just not at the global level, but also back in India, in the region, and also in my own city in Mumbai. And I got invited to join a number of global, elite networks of change makers, from different countries, to present recommendations to policymakers and influential decision makers, in issues pertaining to climate change, the refugee crisis, transitional justice, etc. And I think most importantly at that time, I felt that, I had an idea which I really wanted to explore further. So So basically, this is a presentation which I made to the German foreign minister on this idea I mentioned, which was basically trying to develop more empathy among the diplomats to actually provide the youth, and the change makers on the ground with more support to be able to implement their own solutions to these problems that they were facing. And I was also selected to like this cohort of, entrepreneurs, 1,000 entrepreneurs, where we went to Denmark and we presented our idea on sort of addressing, the water crisis. So this is a photo from there. And back in Mumbai, I organized the first, water lab called the Open Situation Room, where we actually had students from Government Law College who also helped us organize it. And we got diplomats, the ambassadors from the Israel, the Swiss, and the German embassies in Mumbai. We got a lot of youth. We got the private sector. We also got the water regulator of Mumbai. And then I got invited to, this UN Global Climate Change conference, again hosted by UNFCCC, where I actually went back and then worked after this break, where I was interviewed by the German media on my idea. I made the presentation to the Development Institute of Germany and to the Environment Ministry. And simultaneously, because I was being recognized as an expert in these areas, the World Bank actually invited me as a consultant to write a report on the situation of, water scarcity and fragility in Horn of Africa and in the most conflict-ridden areas of Africa. And, I wrote another report for the board of, big international foundation on, how could cities be the main actors through both innovation and, through the private sector and the youth in addressing the climate crisis of the world. And simultaneously, I was teaching in a number of universities, and I was also sort of building the capacity of diplomats, on academics, of entrepreneurs, including government officials from India on these issues. I also taught at GLC, and that is always very nice. Then I worked for a big NGO called Oxfam, again, leading the work on addressing the water scarcity issue in South Asia region, including Myanmar, Bangladesh, Nepal, India, Bhutan. And so this really sort of, gave me a very unique perspective, because it took me more from the normative level, working in the UN from a global level, to listening to voices on the ground, to learning about the stories, that these women had, the children had, the men had, as to how vulnerable they were, because they were actually living on floating islands in Bangladesh. They were not recognized as citizens of the country. They were facing the climate crisis. They did not have access to a hospital. They did not have access to a school or college in the community. They were living under extreme, health, lack of sanitation issues, and were being exploited by the private sector on the mainland and the sand mining industry. And I think, this really sort of, got me to looking at international development, also from a more personal perspective, and sort of trying to understand how was I contributing, to making a change in the world, and what were the issues that needed to be addressed, and how powerful were the voices of the women, of the youth, of other non-government stakeholders, and why these voices mattered in decision-making processes. And so So what did my work outside the UN teach me? Yeah, I think first was that I really thought that I have a platform where I can voice my opinion, and there are enough opportunities outside the UN to really also say that if I want to make a change, you can make a change. And then professional network is really important, because international development is a very, very small world, and so you are going to meet the same people, so you have to keep good relationships with everyone. And I think active listening, being very empathetic and sensitive to the voice and needs of the people across borders, having multi-stakeholder partnerships, and really having more cooperation amongst different national governments and the cities, at every level, is so important. And I also feel that, with the privilege of my education and the network, I have, and the experience I have gained, I also have a responsibility, to advocate for change and to really, help these people as well. I do want to see, I am seeing some questions, which I'm going to answer now. So how can UN ensure that promises made by countries for sustainable development to be implemented in a time-bound manner? So UN is basically a platform. It is a global platform, and different UN agencies have different mandates, which basically means that if countries sign up to that mandate, they are then already being the face of the change that they would like to see, just not at the global level, but also within their countries. And when you say, how can this be done in a time-bound manner? So this is one aspect in international development and public policy, which is that change takes time. So, there is really, no accepted common time frame when you want to sort of see a change which is permanent and which can withstand time. It is going to differ from project to project, and it is going to be affected by different conditions and circumstances, including the kind of country where that change needs to happen. And that is also the reason why, I encourage all of you who are interested in international development to actually, look at, other organizations, where maybe they don't have such a big global mandate. They are doing it more at a regional level, or they're doing it at a national or a local level. And then, it's easier for them to sort of, advocate for that change, because they are not even overburdened by bureaucratic processes or by agreements from so many countries. And then as a young professional for you, that can be very encouraging, right? Because then you feel that, okay, I contributed to this project, and now I feel that, I've really made a difference, because you've seen a change that has happened. And then there is a question on, in times in the war-torn countries and regions, what were the specific ways of navigating through the issues through work, considering the volatile of this region? So I think this again goes to just working in, circumstances, political, social, economic circumstances, which are very different from, the country we come from sometimes, or, how we as students have not been prepared for this kind of work. And so I think, when I was particularly working on this report on water scarcity in Africa, in Horn of Africa, and this involved, it involved Congo and a number of other countries. I think sort of being very patient, in knowing that you have a lot of different stakeholders, who need to be included in the decision-making process, and that, some of the stakeholders would not want to join you, and then creating the right coalition, creating a circle of, like-minded, committed professionals to do the work, listening to the stories on the ground, also sort of addressing the issues which absolutely need to be addressed, by sitting with these different stakeholders and knowing that it is going to take some time, and perhaps maybe focus on other issues which are still interlinked, and that it is a slow process, but again measuring the results. So I think a lot of what I'm talking about only becomes clear when you start working. And yes, of course, it can get frustrating, and of course, it will test your patience. But for example, what really helped me at that point in time was that my report was actually implemented. It was taken into consideration by the World Bank to actually start a window of investments, based on my recommendations. So that felt to me as if, I had contributed in some way. And of course, taking it to the ground level and implementing it is another, is another job to do. But, one step at one time, I feel. And the other question is, what were some considerations you made in choosing a career in public policy? So what I mentioned, which was I really enjoyed, my Supreme Court clerkship a lot. And my Supreme Court clerkship was not just about, working in a law firm where I was coming in and, doing some mergers, or I was doing, some work on arbitration, but I was actually looking at public interest litigation issues. And I was working very closely with my judge in the National Judicial Academy to train judges from district courts and from high courts. And we were also doing a project on mediation as well. And so, it just sort of made me feel that there is so much to law besides, working as a lawyer in a law firm or working as a counsel. And then, it just got revalidated for me, when I came back and I worked in the Prime Minister's office on this constitutional and public policy report. And I worked for the law ministry on the, judicial reforms in our country. And so, as I mentioned, go try it out if you feel passionate about something, before devoting your entire life, and also sort of check your own personality, And I'm seeing a question on the bureaucratic hurdles while working. So I think I've already mentioned them, which relates to, working in difficult countries, and also working with different partners. And also, of course, because, if it is an international organization, you also have to be patient because, everybody's got their own program to deliver on. And, sometimes you have to just sort of see how you are building the right coalition, and also how you are addressing the different dynamics. I think being very sensitive to people coming from different countries and different cultural backgrounds is also very, very important. And of course, being very, very, patient and actively listening as well. And I also then want to sort of, maybe we can just show the mentee survey before I go to the last part. And if there are any more questions, I'm still looking at the chat box and very happy to answer them.
Ma'am, shall I send the link for the last question?
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a question on what would you advise we do as students currently to progress in the direction towards international development and public policy? Yes, I will answer that question. I was going to answer that question in a bit. Let's just look at the mentee question before I answer that question. Okay, this is very interesting because everyone who's responded to the question on why do you want to do a post-graduation degree, it doesn't cover anything, most of the options that have been provided. So please do provide in the chat box if you want to. If you want to stay anonymous, that's fine. Because I think, I agree that I don't think so. Doing a post-graduation degree should just be done because everybody is doing it, but rather it needs to be an informed choice. And a lot of my own classmates never went on to do LLM, and they're still doing really well. They knew that they wanted to be a lawyer, they wanted to work in a law firm, or they wanted to be a counsel, and they were happy with that. And the others who did it, they knew why they wanted to do it. When I was in law school, I think actually I never thought about doing a LLM till I actually went and clerked in the Supreme Court. So it's perfectly okay, not knowing at this point in time why you want to do it, or for doing it for reasons that are not based on these other considerations. And I'm very, very happy to see that none of these options were actually marked by most of you, because these are exactly the options or the reasons why you should not be doing a post-graduation degree at all. So I'm very, very happy to see that that's not the reason. I think that said, I really do want to go back to this question on, the advice. So what do you want to, or how do you want to really progress to a career in public policy and international development? I think, the advice I would give you, which I would have given to myself, when I was a student at government law college. And believe me, at that time, we didn't have so much of, social media. In fact, we had no social media. Facebook was not even, there at that time. We didn't have Twitter or LinkedIn, communication was mainly in person, with certain alumni just coming into our college, and we, just talking to people at internships, right? And so I think, I would really, say that be hungry, right? Be very, very curious, just open yourself up, to listening to different stories, to people who don't, to people like me, perhaps, who are not lawyers in the traditional sense, because it was very interesting to see one of these other mentee survey results where a lot of you did say that, at this point in time, we are passionate about something else. So explore your passion, through these different opportunities. There are so many other organizations just in Mumbai, that are going to, open opportunities for you to try your passion, to know if this is what you want to do after you graduate from law school. So do that, go beyond an internship with a counsel or in a law firm. And I would also say that, at the same time, change is always uncomfortable, right? Like, if there is anything that happens outside our comfort zone, or anything where we do not know how it's going to go about in the future, we feel that, we are not going to be able to adapt. But I would actually encourage you, to embrace change in your life, whether it's by trying something different or by exploring what you really feel passionate about, but, you feel nobody's going to understand you, or you're not going to get enough support. Because I feel in the future, if you've tried it, and if, you've embraced change, you might actually see that there are a multitude of benefits, to it. And I also think that, rejection is just part of adult life, right? I think what is more important is not to see rejection, as a way to stop you from pursuing your passion, or, from pursuing a certain career choice, but rather to learn from rejection and to sort of, grow from there. And, if you are taking risks, I do not equate taking risks with you being irresponsible, because I've basically taken risks all throughout my young professional life. And, I've just moved to a country randomly, I've just, done a job where I wasn't being paid any money even after a graduation school degree, I've just, worked in a place where, I wasn't very sure if I would be a good fit. And I think, so it doesn't show that, we are irresponsible by actually taking these risks. It actually shows that, you're very confident, you are a very versatile person, you're very passionate about something, and, that you have some determination to succeed in your life. And I would also say that, personal and professional relationships really do matter. So, the relationship you share with your parents, with your siblings, with your classmates at GLC, with your friends outside GLC, you have to make a special effort to continue nurturing them. They are going to be the most important people in your life forever, and including your mentors, and, also having the professional network and nurturing those relationships, and they all take time. But I would, recommend that you do that, you put in time for that. And I also think it's very, important to sort of, prioritize your own health, your mental health, and, to take care of yourself. Because in a lot of the work that at least I do, and I think it goes, with just also being a lawyer and the kind of profession that we are going to choose, as lawyers, because we are high performing, people, do take care of yourself. You are going to get frustrated, you are sometimes going to feel change is not going to happen, but, think of it in a perspective. Remember, it's not your fault if, things are not moving in the right direction, but you continue doing your bit. But, consider yourself as the most important person in the entire system, as, I would say. And so, Anushka, the considerations that I had, when I chose a career in public policy, I think for me, my considerations really were that, and I think this also goes with the advice to students who want to progress in the direction towards international development and public policy, is that I think law, as a solid skill, is a very valuable, educational background that you carry with yourself in public policy and international development, because you are really seen as a professional with a very solid set of skills when it comes to reasoning, when it comes to writing logically, when it comes to analytical processing of the information, and also when it just comes to personality. And so, you already have an advantage over other disciplines and other professions as a lawyer. And so play that to your advantage. And I would say, and, try out internships. And I've already exposed you to so many different opportunities in public policy and international development sitting right in Bombay. Join an NGO, join a startup, join a foundation, join a think tank. We have alumni from our own college who have actually set up think tanks, who have actually set up public policy firms in Delhi. So look into these, look into this, reach out to alumni, reach out to me as well. And, sort of build on the skills that are needed for a career, which I have sort of spoken about. And choose the subjects in GLC that you are studying where, you feel that if you select the subject, you would get to know this in a way that you are very passionate about, for example, maybe environment or, public international law or private law. And then you would also know if this is an area where you want to, dwell further into, in your career, and then what are the options, right? And so many of you had mentioned, sort of taking part in these co-curricular activities. And I think GLC, you are also fortunate because, GLC really, all that we can say about GLC in terms of, in terms of perhaps, not having that, kind of typical law student experience is actually to our advantage, because GLC gives us so much of freedom, to start new initiatives, to develop, new co-curricular activities, to encourage yourself and, your friends to then, participate in these activities. And, there is so much today with the internet of sort of, having exchanges with students, just not from other law schools, but also students from other disciplines across the country, so play that to your advantage as well, I would say, when you're still in GLC. And when there's a question on what were the considerations that I made in choosing a career in public policy, I think I've answered that. I think your personality also matters. My personality is such that, I think I was always more interested, in doing something for others on a wider scale. So I always felt that, if I had to help more people, I had to be in a place, in a sector where I had a platform to help more people. And I found that platform, in international development. And and I also knew that, I'm a very impatient person. And if I feel that I'm asked to do the same work every single day, I would be very bored, and I would not be able to, use my entire skill set. So I also think a lot about problems, and I'm very happy to see a lot of you also think about these global challenges. So I think my personality, and of course you will not know yourself so well. I mean, just to share with you, you might just laugh at this point in time, but I was actually put into a train by my father, which he booked, and a letter which he accepted on my behalf after Professor Pitawala was like, Jasdeep needs to go to Delhi to go and accept my, position as a law clerk in the Supreme Court. I was not willing to leave Mumbai. I was not willing to go and do that clerkship. And, so it's your family and it's your professors who know your personality, right? I mean, and also this was coming in the background of me getting like very prestigious law firm offers after graduation, and me rejecting all those offers, and also getting an offer, I think, from a company as a legal counsel. And I actually, as soon, and this is really a funny story, which Professor Pitawala will share with you, where I was given an offer, and as soon as the offer comes in, I ran away from the placement committee cell, because I was like, oh my God, why should I work in the private sector? I'm going to kill myself, coming in every day, with these files for the rest of my life, and this is so boring. So of course, people around you know you well, people know your personality, right? And so listen to them, but the ultimate decision has to be yours, because I don't think so you should be blaming anyone for the kind of life you lead and the kind of career choices you make. And for that, you have to take very informed decisions, and like I took these informed decisions by trying these different, organizations, and sort of also not putting a financial liability on my own family to do these things, right? And I think that's very important. So there's a question: in the initial days of your career, do you think it is okay to explore different kinds of work? Or would you recommend a spearheaded, unfocused approach? So absolutely, I think you have to be very open to different work opportunities that come, because nobody is going to give you the kind of work you want to do. You should have a good idea of the general framework, or the area where you want to work, but then being very persistent that even in this area of work, These are the only responsibilities I want to take on. Or, this is the only kind of project I want to work on. That is going to backfire, because you are not going to know before you actually place yourself in a particular project or organization what else you might like. And B, the nature of work in public policy and development is such that you also have to show how versatile you are, how adaptable you are, how willing you are to take on new kinds of tasks, and how comfortable you are with the uncertainty that comes. So even in my case, even after so many years of experience, I can still go to work every day and have tasks which are not related to my core area, or have tasks which I have to absolutely work on to be able to even advance in my project, or do things which are so boring sometimes, but I just have to do them because that's the nature of work. But at the same time, and particularly when you're interning and you're doing your internship, you also need to start becoming very aware of what you are liking and what you're not liking in that kind of work and environment, because then you have to play that to your own advantage, when you're applying for jobs. And also you have to build your resume, and you have to showcase through these different internships, that these are the skills I have. So for example, when I worked when I worked back in India on the report for the Commission on Center-State Relations and in the Law Ministry, a lot of the work was doing research for Dr. Madhav Menon, who was a member and who's also the founder of the National Law School, who passed away. And so that was pure research work, right? And it wasn't that I was coming in to do the research, but what the research exposed me was to a lot of insights and inputs from the state governments to the report, on the public policy problems they were facing in their own states. So I understood a lot about, how is public policy or decisions being taken? What are the constraints on state governments, when they have to make these decisions? What is their relationship with the central government? And how are people getting affected when, legislations are not being implemented? And at that time, National Rural Employment Guarantee Act was, one of the big legislations at that time. And, so that gave me the more practical exposure to the public policy side of things, and also understanding different parts, whether it related to federalism, or it related to implementation, or it related to governance, or it related to rule of law reforms in the law ministry, or it related to participation by citizens, or it related to sort of generating surveys, right? So that's very important, and I think that's the area then I could also show on my resume as well, and then so the spearheaded and focused approach comes more with work experience, where then you are sort of looked as someone who can actually manage an entire project in the organization. And you can actually, by managing the project, I actually see my mom. That's very nice. Hi, Mama. See, I said, I think, my mother still comes, and, she's always been my number one supporter. So as I said, it's always so good to have family supporting you everywhere. And so I think it's very, very important, to sort of build on that experience, have that exposure, and put it on your resume, and then to be recognized as an expert as well on that. Now, there's another question. While working with the government in policy work, what are the most important things that we need to keep in mind? I think that's a very good question, Siddhant. I think whether it's working for the government in public policy, or for that matter, it's working with any stakeholder, um, everybody has different interests. Everybody has a goal or a vision in mind, and every stakeholder, and when I say stakeholder, it could either be the government, or it could be a local NGO, or it could be the private sector, or it could be you as youth, right? So I think everybody has a different interest in a particular problem, and everybody is sort of trying to advance that from their vision on what they want to do. And so that basically means that you have to remember that you are a part of a very big system. And and that is the reason why a lot of you, when you mentioned all these bureaucracies and frustrations, this becomes a very normal part of the job in international development, in the kind of work I do in public policy. And so there are some very important skills to have in this kind of job to do. And the only way you can learn these skills is by actually doing such an internship, by actually exposing yourself to this kind of a job. And you will learn on the job. You will also find out whether or not it suits you or your interests or your personality, right? And I think based on that, you could also think that I need to develop my skill set further. So you might actually decide then to go do government studies, public policy studies, or even an MBA, to sort of advance your career on that. I also do want to say a little bit, because we are all of you are going to graduate, and you are going to come in the category of young graduates and young professionals. One thing I've seen in international development is that the youth are very, very proactive. They are actually leading change, on all these problems, that you yourself had put on the survey. And I really, and there is no right time to sort of, start thinking about what you can do to lead on the problem you feel passionate about, and you can do it right from your time in government law college. And in fact, I mean, I knew of some of my classmates who, for example, started, the legal aid project, where they were helping, prisoners, the inmates who had no access to lawyers because of their financial position, and they were drafting their applications, their bail petitions. Then I know of some of my classmates who, when this whole accountability thing, Anna Hazare movement happened, they created a committee to, sort of, provide some research assistance on this issue. I know a lot of you also work with councils on public interest litigation issues as well. So I really do want to say that, all of you are already recognized as very powerful advocates in the development world and in the public policy world as change makers. And, I know a lot of youth, including, I mean, even me, I mentioned to you how I represented India in a youth, the G20 summit in Russia, right? And so you can actually already start exploring opportunities in development world, through your status as youth, and there are so many of these programs which you should look into, where you can actually go and represent India or government law college in the United Nations, in one of their youth forums, on different issues, whether it's gender equality, or it's climate change, or it's health, or it's startups, entrepreneurship. And so I would really encourage that, if you are interested in this kind of work, use your voice, and you have a solid set of skills as, law students to already do that. And I would really, really encourage that. Yeah, I'm very happy to take on more questions. I do know it's a little bit late, even in India, but if you have questions, I'm happy to take them on as well.
Um, Ma'am, if you could throw light on your experience in applying for an LLM at Yale and how did you go about choosing the program?
Sure, and that's a very important question. So, I think Yale Law School really, I'm still surprised till date that they took me, they accepted me, just given how small the program is, and that there is no guarantee that every year we will have a student, from India in the program, because they only select 22 students from across the globe for the LLM program. And so I think you really have to. I think it's a two-way street. You need to be very interested in what the program can offer you in your career, and also how it shapes you as a person. And simultaneously, the program needs to see the value in having you as their student, and not just as a student, but also how promising you are after you become an alumna of that institution. And so I think it also depends a lot on, whether or not you fit their eligibility criteria. For example, with Yale, the eligibility criteria is that you need to have a career or an interest or be very promising as an academic or a researcher after you graduate. And I think in my case, I was only 23 when I got accepted, so I was quite young. In my case, what really happened was I knew the reason I was applying to Yale Law School was, first, I was very interested in comparative constitutional law and, sort of using that back in India. And I was coming with a lot of research experience from my clerkship, particularly, where I was just not assisting Justice Sinha on the cases, but I was also assisting him in, work at the National Judicial Academy. And also, work on in a number of initiatives of the Supreme Court on training programs. And so I think that really helped me. The second thing was that, the professional references matter a lot, and academic references, of course, matter a lot. And I had a very strong reference coming from Justice Sinha. And I think that really, really sort of helped me. And I think the third thing was that I was also, I think I was very interested in an area also where I had already developed some expertise, or I had insights, which is constitutional law, public law, which Yale Law School faculty are very strong in. And they also have an interest from a comparative perspective. And so that's why, I mentioned to you, you have to see whether or not you even meet their threshold, their eligibility criteria. And after you meet the eligibility criteria, do you see yourself as a good fit, which can advance, right, for you? For example, for me, Yale Law School really advanced my career in public policy, because yes, of course, I studied a lot of comparative constitutional law, which I could then use immediately in writing a report for the Commission on Center-State Relations. And I could also use that knowledge to write a paper which is very frequently cited on the Indian Supreme Court and politics of the country. And, I got my job offer only at the Commission on Center-State Relations with Dr. Madhav Menon, because I had studied at Yale Law School. And so these are very important considerations. You have to be a good fit. You genuinely have to have an interest in what the faculty and the institution can provide you with in your career. And the institution needs to have a sufficient interest in you to take you on as a student. And I think, in my case, yes, I am a development practitioner, but I am still teaching, and I'm coming in as a capacity builder trainer. And so I'm still sort of contributing in the area of academia and research. I'm still writing papers, which I mentioned to you, which get accepted in these different places, or the organizations use me for. And I think with Harvard, again, the reason they accepted me in the public policy program was because, I was coming in with the experience already, right? Like I had worked in, these organizations, and, I had a solid legal skill set, which was important in the area that I was focusing on in public policy. So yes, I hope that answers your question. I am also seeing a question, as a first year law student, how should we develop necessary skills? Prakar, do you want to just sort of clarify what you mean by necessary skills, and what are these necessary skills you're looking at? Like researching. Okay. So I think, when you start from your first year, I think you are really in the best position in being in the first year, because, besides just studying, the normal subjects, which are not just the legal subjects, you can actually, start exploring based on your interests, what is law school offering me in my first year, what are the activities I can take part in. And also sort of, because you have a little bit more time, because you are still a junior, you're in your first year, you can also start exploring outside GLC how you can, take forward your interests. One thing I would certainly tell you not to do is to do an internship in your very first year, if you can avoid that, because when you do an internship in the first year, right after high school and in your first year, nobody is going to give you any work which is going to, help you in, really contributing in a very, in a very meaningful way. And your time, I think, is better spent in using that, little bit of free availability that you have in exploring your interests, right? So you say research, so maybe write a paper and see if it gets published in a journal, on a platform, or write a blog, and tweet it, right? Your article, for example, so I think there are so many ways of doing it, and reach out to your seniors, to the different associations from the college, who can, also provide you with some guidance, who can also sort of provide you with some, perhaps, membership opportunities in the committees, so make yourself useful in these committees, volunteer and help out. I want to sort of share with you, I was approached by a law student in her first year, and this was 7 years ago. And she was, at that time, she was very passionate, and she still is. Her name is Akansha, and she's excellent, really. She was very passionate on media law. And so she was volunteering her time in writing for, I think it's called Live Law. It's some sort of a legal, blog, or some sort of a online publication called Live Law. And so she actually approached me, for an interview, on sort of, my journey in the development world. And I think at that time, what I really found interesting was that she had not taken the normal path of working in a law firm in her first year, but she was really passionate about an area, and she thought, she was a law student, she could also use that to her advantage. And so she joined Live Law, and, she was writing for them, and she was using, people, professors, alumni of GLC to sort of provide, some material to Live Law. They were happy to publish it, based on interesting stories that she was writing. And so, and then, I had a couple of students, including her, who helped me organize this diplomacy lab in Mumbai. And this was the first time it actually happened in India. And they sort of got an opportunity to network with ambassadors, and with the private sector, and with government officials. So you should also reach out to alumni. Alumni association is, for example, doing this lecture. Me now, for example, and I've already asked the association to share my email ID, and feel free to reach out on my email ID. Feel free to connect with me on, LinkedIn or Twitter. And, so you'll start seeing that GLC provides you with these opportunities as well. And, you can definitely, reach out to alumni who are very happy to help. You should reach out to the professors themselves. You should also reach out to your own seniors. And you should also take on certain initiatives yourself, I feel. So that's what I would advise. I hope that's answered more or less all the questions that I have seen in the chat box. Sanchi, Aditya, is there any other question that you see that I might have missed out?
No, ma'am, I think we have addressed everything adequately.
Great. I look, I'm happy to be here for the next 10-15 minutes if you want. And as I mentioned, I'm also very, very happy to, connect with you later. Yes, if you have more questions, let me know. Because I do see some people have left, and I also don't want to eat into your dinner time and other Friday scheduled activities. So feel free to ask me questions, or we can connect later, or whatever works for you.
If the students so prefer, they could just unmute themselves and ask the questions themselves.
Yes, absolutely. So one question I didn't, sorry, I'm seeing a question which I did not address, and this is a very important question, which is, what is the process to study with a scholarship? I don't know if Shreya is still there, but yes, I do want to answer this question. This is really very important. So I think graduation school is very expensive. Really, it is. And it's only becoming more and more expensive. Every year they increase the tuition fees by about 10%. I remember that I thought the tuition fees was so high, in these universities 10 years ago. And I think at that time it was about $50,000 or $60,000 a year, but today it's $110,000 a year. And so it's already doubled in the last 10 years. Yes, look, please don't go to a grad school if you're not getting any financial assistance. Just don't think about that scenario unless or until you think that you have adequate means to pay off the tuition fees and the living expenses, or you think that you are going to work in a place, in an organization where you are going to be able to pay off the loan which you take for that. But barring these two considerations, once you've been accepted to a grad school, and if really you are a good fit, and that's the reason why I have highlighted why you should be a good fit, is because if the school really wants you, they are going to be providing you with financial assistance. I mean, at least that was my experience. Yale Law School, that was my experience. Oxford, I didn't mention this, but I had been accepted to Oxford actually when I also got accepted to Yale. Of course, that was not an option for me anymore once I got Yale, but I then applied the second time, and I told them that I'm not coming to you if I don't get a scholarship, and they found a scholarship for me, through Harish Salvik. And the same was with Harvard. I deferred for 1 year. I got some funding for the first year. I was able to really work very, very hard and to look for international scholarships for Harvard. But that only covered me for the first year. And then for the second year, I basically told the faculty that, if I don't get assistance from the school, I am going to quit the program. And they didn't want me to quit the program. So it's not like you have to blackmail them. But I think my point is that, they are going to provide you with some options to help you and to support you. So yes, one thing is that, in India itself, there are lots of scholarship opportunities that are available. But at the same time, keep in mind that these are just not limited to lawyers. They are actually for every student from every field, every discipline, going to different, universities abroad. So they're all very highly competitive. That means, and also they will not majority of the times cover you entirely, but you need to apply for the scholarships. You need to identify them. I actually did a lot of research, particularly for Harvard, to get a lot of scholarships, both from India and also from outside India. So you have to do your homework, you have to look at options, but the assurance from my side is yes, there are scholarship opportunities available. But if you want to be a very attractive candidate for these scholarship opportunities, you have to prove why you are better than the other person asking for financial assistance. And I think that is the reason why I also go back to making a point that, if you're applying to grad school, make your application, make yourself stand out, because that's not only going to just help you for your scholarship, but it is also going to help you to, be seen as someone who is so strong an applicant that neither the school can let go of you. And, if any scholarship thinks that you are not the best candidate, then they are making the mistake. Right? So have a very strong resume, have a very strong statement of purpose, as I have explained before. And the second thing is that, particularly when you go to programs which are of longer duration, like a 2-year program like I did, or, when you are doing a PhD, you are going to be recruited as a research assistant or a teaching assistant. And I did that a lot at Harvard, and I made some extra money. Which really helped me as well with my living expenses. I could also sort of get money from other, these sources. And I think lastly, and I think this is very, very important, feel free to defer your admission. And don't consider that because you've deferred your admission, you are not going to be able to get back into the school next year. They will take you back if they really want to, and also speak to the faculty from that school already and tell them that, you've accepted me. Can you sort of guide me on these different scholarships? There's a question on, is there any age limit for the scholarship? No, there is no age limit for the scholarship, because essentially the scholarships are tied to your admission in a program in a university. So, there is one scholarship called the Fulbright scholarship from India, which a lot of the IAS officers who were my classmates at Kennedy School got. But then exactly, I mean, they were in their 50s and early 60s or in their 40s, but the point was that none of us got those scholarships, because this is what I was also talking about, that they are so they are all such elite scholarships, and then these scholarship programs are also then biased towards a certain profile of a candidate. And that's the reason I also encourage you to look outside India. I also encourage you, a lot of the schools themselves, in fact, all the schools not only just have financial assistance programs, but they also have scholarship programs. So even apply for the scholarship programs besides the assistance programs, and also apply, for these international scholarships, I would say. I think I'm not missing on anything anymore. I'm looking also at the previous chat. So yeah, Sanchi, over to you.
Ma'am, do our LLB marks play any role in getting scholarship or else admission in some abroad university? So,
Absolutely. Yes, and anything further to that? So
no, no, no,
that's it.
that's
No, no, thanks for asking, Shreya. And I really do want to say that, first of all, from your side, you have to do your best when it comes to, studying for these subjects. I also know it's not in your hands with the results which the university will come back. And I have heard of horrendous stories, of students who were not able to get their degree certificates on time, but they had been accepted to elite universities. Or, I've heard of stories where you thought your paper went well, but you actually were failed and you didn't even get a passing mark. And I know these things are not in your control, but what is in your control is that you are able to perform your best, and that you are actually studying and not getting demotivated by what is not in your control, right? So also I think, I mean, I've also done this, and that's why I'm telling you not to do it. Sometimes we just think that just studying certain notes which have been passed on from previous classes or previous years, or looking into these commercial notes which basically are in question answer format based on previous papers, I'm sorry to say that's not going to advance anyone's knowledge on any of those subjects, right? I mean, the only purpose of having those are if you really just want to graduate from GLC, if you already have a work life and that's what you want to do for the rest of your life, then go ahead and do those papers, do those commercial notes. But if you really want to learn the law, and if you really want to sort of explore which subject you are very passionate about, then then I think that would also give you an extra incentive of not worrying about results which are not in your hand, but actually focusing on learning the law and knowing that if you understand this area better, you can use it for your internship, or you can use it for your master's program, or you can explore if you really feel passionate about that as well. So yes, but yes, Shreya, this is also true that when you apply, your grades are very important and they do matter. But that only matters that only matters relatively to a very small proportion of other things which are very important. So maybe the weightage criteria that they will give to your grades, particularly to schools which are more focused on learning, for example, and I'm not talking about Yale, which is very academic focused, or Oxford, which is academic focused, but Harvard, for example, or Columbia or NYU, they and even Yale and Oxford for that matter, they are also going to look at, is your application showing that you are an all-rounder? Is your application showing certain other skills, right? Like, are you an accomplished dancer? Or, you are a stand-up comedian, or, you have, already done an amazing internship somewhere, or, you have, worked on a very important cause in the subject that you want to now advance your knowledge and experience in. And so they're looking at the overall personality or the package that the person is bringing to the program. And also, for example, with the Kennedy School, they didn't even look at my transcripts from Oxford or Yale in the sense of the grades I got. And nobody looks at my grades, in the UN or in any of these other organizations. What they were more interested was that, did I have the relevant work experience? Did I have the relevant skill sets? And, did I really have a personality which would fit well into the program and which would also help their institution to be highlighted in the future through the career choices I make? So yes, grades are important, but grades are not the only thing that are going to be looked in these applications. It's your entire story, the narrative you build, how are you, addressing the different components of the fit with the university, and also what are you promising, as a person, as Shreya, for example, I would say. So everyone is thinking quite deeply. I think that's a lot of information for people as well. And um, I, um, I'm very interested because I also see that there are some students who are actually coming from the 3-year program, right? And I think that's very, very encouraging because I think the 3-year program, the students already have had some, experience. They're not coming straight from high school. And I would really encourage, the 5-year program students to have more interaction and engagement with the 3-year program students. And I think they also sometimes have experience which we don't have as high school graduates, right? I don't know if anybody, I mean, not necessarily just related to GLC or my career, but if there are any other things, please reach out to me. Very, very happy to speak to any of you. And, if you're looking at certain internships, including in the UN, do let me know. I can always sort of guide you with these kind of opportunities as well, because I did see a question on, the considerations, etc., and these opportunities. Look, so with internship opportunities in the UN, I think as 5-year graduates, you don't even have to have a master's degree. If you have the 5-year graduation degree, and if you have a 3-year post-graduation degree after your first year graduation degree, then you are automatically eligible to apply for a UN internship. And you should play that to your advantage, because that itself is considered like a master's, because our program is so professional in nature. And I sometimes look at these internship applications. In fact, I look at a lot of these internship applications, and don't feel that you are not good enough already, as a graduate of GLC, because you are excellent, already, to get some experience or exposure in the UN as an intern. So I would highly recommend that, if you are interested in this path, and if you already know you want to work for the UN, start looking at these internship opportunities. They are going to have the criteria on, how are you going to be eligible to apply. So look at the criteria, which would include how many years of, graduation you need to have after high school, and, the limitation on when you cannot be an intern anymore, which is, I think, 1 year after you complete your graduation. And you really need to check, because I think you might be eligible already in your final year as to do an internship, if I'm not wrong. So look at that, and then you also check as to what are the skills that they are asking you as an intern to have, and start building those skills when you are in your first year, second year, third year. Also look at the different UN agencies. I told you we have a lot of UN agencies. The WHO, which works on health. Then there is the UN Women, which works on gender equality. Then there is UNDP, which works on everything. Then there is an organization which works on more accountability, transparency issues, and cross-border trafficking issues and corruption issues, for example. Then my organization, which works on cities, the other organization on climate change, then other organization on environment. So you get the idea. And so look at all these different agencies, because I've had some questions from GLC students on how do I work in the UN, and you see which agencies, mandate, as they call mandate, is what are they working on, interests you, and then start focusing on that area. And I have to say this to you, because I don't work as a lawyer, right? I'm actually working as a diplomat. So what that means is that even though you are a lawyer and your skill set is very important, when you apply for an internship, if you are only applying for an internship in the legal office of that UN agency, then you'll essentially be doing what you do in a law firm, but basically doing a lot of agreements for governments, a lot of contracts, a lot of memorandum of understanding. But at the same time, if you apply more generally to the different programs, then you will be also working on issues where you won't just be using your legal skills, but at the same time, your skills of writing well, your skills of analyzing information, and then doing some research for, writing a memo for the manager, or a speech for the, senior executive secretary, or your, skills in sort of organizing conferences, so you can do all these things, or, working with different partners, or working with the government, or sort of, looking at project management, coordinating things, so you can start being exposed to the wider component by applying to the different teams or programs in that particular agency. So go to their website, check out what these different teams are doing, what are the different programs, and that would all be available on the website as well. So that's what I would highly encourage you to look into. And also, like I mentioned, there are lots of platforms which are being run by these different UN teams, UN programs, where they are basically identifying youth. So it's not like these paid opportunities, but I think, you get identified to be a youth representative on that issue if you have something interesting that you worked on. So for example, you might have worked on a very interesting research issue on climate change, and you might have advocated for some change, and it might have been sort of seen by someone, and you can sort of make an application to say that I can also sort of be a part of your platform. And that also then gives you an opportunity to meet with youth from different countries, and then to go to the UN and to sort of work on that issue in one of these conferences or meetings. And I know a lot of youth from India are very active, and they do that. So, look at these opportunities and options as well, I would say. And that's often a good way of sort of also, sort of gaining a little bit more understanding of what the UN does. And at the same time, also sort of, building your network, I would say. Yeah, I could go on talking about all this, but I just want to say you have lots of options, and just explore, maybe focus a little bit less on just moving from one internship to the next, and more on, okay, if I have so many options, how do I utilize my time the best? Because you are the manager of your own time. You have to prioritize things which you want to work on. So don't feel compelled by what your manager or boss is telling you, or because they want to get the work done from you. But you need to know if you are comfortable, and you need to know if you are developing yourself in your career, and progressing with your passion. That's what I would say. As a 3-year LLB student, is it wise to start internship in the first year? That's a good question. I think it would again depend on what kind of internship you're going for. And also, because I would imagine that you are coming with an education or experience which is not necessarily law related. But then if you are then wanting to get into a law firm from the first year to do an internship, and that's the career path for you, then by all means go ahead and do it. But I don't see why in the first year, when the law subjects you are studying are such essential subjects, you would want to just sort of spend all your day in a law firm, and particularly because you've been exposed to something so different in your life before. So I would actually ask you if it's possible, and if it's not a must in terms of any exams you have to take to get into the law firm or to be recruited after 3 years, to maybe take that 1 year off and see if you are able to do other things also, to see if as a lawyer you have more options than just a law firm or being a counselor. But of course, I mean, if you absolutely know that's what you want to do, then by all means go ahead. And lastly, I think I'm just going back to the UN. I also want to say that there are lots of options as lawyers, just also not in these in their council units, but also there is, for example, peacekeeping missions, and a lot of the peacekeeping missions in these difficult conflict affected areas hire lawyers to work on a lot of human right violation issues, a lot of cases of genocide, for example. And but this kind of work is very demanding, and this kind of work is also very, very niche. And then, for example, in New York, for example, you also have the mediation unit, and they do a lot of work on sort of brokering, soft agreements, with national governments on very difficult issues, on very difficult political issues. But again, you have to be an expert. But I think there are internship opportunities available in these kind of units. And then finally, you also have a lot of tribunals in the United Nations. For example, you have the International Court of Justice, you have the International Criminal Court, you have the Court on Arbitration. And so, a couple of students every year from Yale Law School. This includes the JD program and also the LLM program. They get accepted, for example, into the International Court of Justice. But then there is a quota, for example, for these elite universities, law students, to get accepted. So my recommendation would be that, if you're interested in these kind of opportunities, look at what these opportunities are, go to the website, then also see how you can, build those skills, what kind of applications you have to make, how you can utilize your time in GLC. And, if a post-graduation degree then becomes important to sort of get access to these kind of, opportunities as well. Can I just see all of you if it's possible? I know a lot of you have just not put on your videos. And, if we were in a classroom, I would have been actually seeing all of you. So, if it's not too much, maybe, just seeing all of you at one point, because I'm seeing a few of you, and yeah, okay, I can see a lot of you now. So I don't know, right? Like, I think your exams are over, and so the exams are over, as I understand. And is school still in progress? So this is a summer break going on for everyone?
No, our lectures have commenced.
Virtually?
Yes.
Okay. And how are the internships happening? Are they happening all remotely if people are interning?
Yes, a lot of them are happening remotely, but there are a chosen few who are going to office.
Okay, the chosen few should decide not to go to office if that's a possibility, because we are still not out of COVID-19, and you're being chosen just because they want some availability at work, but you don't have to be those to be available as interns, I would say. I really do hope that with the COVID-19 situation that all of you have been vaccinated. I think that's so important. Really, I mean, that's the only thing we can do ourselves. So I hope everybody is vaccinated. And also, this is really to your advantage, I would say, because everything has gone virtual. I think you can now find more time to do things or explore more things. And a lot of the organizations I was talking about, including the interns in my agency, they are all working remotely. So basically for the last 18 months, everybody has been working remotely. So really play that to your advantage, because you can actually today be interning for an NGO in Netherlands, or you could be interning for a UN agency if you're in your final year, that is based in Sudan, for example, and you're sitting in Mumbai. So play this to your advantage. Go for these virtual internships where you can do this. One more program I want to let you know, and I'm going to type this in the chat box because everyone should have these links. And look, later on, I'm happy to send a few more links through the Alumni Association for all of you, is to look at the UN volunteer program. And the UN volunteer program has an age limit. So I think no, it doesn't have an age limit, but basically what happens with UN volunteer program is they provide you with it's much better than an internship program. They provide you with a stipend for your living expenses to be covered. And you basically put in an application in a roster, and they are the ones who are going to place you in a UN agency. So you don't have to do the hard work of, choosing a particular agency, but they are going to do the hard work of putting you in a certain UN agency based on your resume. And you can be deployed at any time. So, it's very quick deployment. But, this is basically a very good way of entering the UN as a young, fresh graduate with very little work experience. Even if you have like 1 year work experience, which you already accumulate during GLC, you can, just apply for this UN volunteer program. It doesn't pay like a regular position, but it covers your expenses. And a lot of UN volunteer program now is happening online. So that's also to your advantage as well, I feel. And lastly, I just want to say, because now I think it's really getting late for everyone, I also do want to say that there are lots of organizations, including in Mumbai, that have very, very strong affiliation and are the local implementing partners for a number of UN agencies. So, for example, when I was working on the public space project in Mumbai and Pune, there were local organizations from Pune, there were local organizations from Mumbai who were actually working with the UN team. And so one such option for you is to, go to these websites and look at the UN affiliation, and do then apply directly to these organizations. And that way you already start getting exposed to the UN teams, and, you start getting to learn the work also, and to see if, that works for you or not as well. Can first year students apply for this program? You have to go and check. My understanding is that you have to be a graduate, if I'm not wrong. Check the rules. I think this all works only when you are a fresh graduate, if I'm not wrong, or you are in your final year. So just, you have to just check, check the websites, and all these websites have information. Sometimes there's also something called the Young Professional Program. The Young Professional Program is like the Indian Foreign Service or the Indian Administrative Service, but it is at a global level, where you're competing with, people of your age, fresh graduates, and I think you have to do it by the age of 25. You're competing with people of your age from across the world. What you have to check with Young Professional Program is India is not always included in this. And this is because sometimes, 1.4 billion people, we've already been overrepresented in the UN system. So, sometimes India is not included in the Young Professional Program. But when India is included in the Young Professional Program, you should apply for it if you're interested. It's a lot of studies, it's a lot of working hard, but if this is something which you're interested in, apply for it. Okay, I think I can continue. I'm seeing everyone nod their heads, and I also know it's very late. Look, I'm very happy to take on more questions, and I'm also very, very happy to, be contacted by any of you. So feel free to reach out, and I am going to leave my email, and I am also going to leave my other, so I think on LinkedIn, if you just type Jasdeep Randhawa for LinkedIn, I should come up. And then I think, if I am not wrong, this is what I am. So feel free to reach out, and don't think any question is silly. And Sanchi, over to you.
Thank you, Jasdeep. I would sincerely like to thank you, Jasdeep, on behalf of the Alumni Association Students Wing, for taking out your valuable time and imparting some very insightful and practical information through this webinar. I would also like to extend my gratitude to our faculty in charge, Masani ma'am, our conveners, Anushka and Nidhi, and the core committee. And lastly, I'd like to thank all the participants for being a patient and interactive audience. I will also shortly be releasing a feedback form in the chat box. Please take out 5 minutes of your time to fill them. And thank you for joining us.
I also just want to thank, first of all, I just want to thank Sanchi and Aditya, and, they've worked so hard. It's not easy for them to do that. We are in different locations, and, we are in different time zones, and they are just so helpful and just so good with all the work they are doing. They've put on with a lot of requests I made. They were very new to Mentimeter. I've introduced them to Mentimeter. but hopefully this was also something, which could be used as a tool for future, sessions. It also helps to engage students more. And also generally for just organizing this, giving the opportunity to speak to, students. And I'm also very happy with all the questions the students asked, because it seems that, people are thinking beyond a conventional career. And I also just want to encourage all of you, believe me, you have such a strong skill set, and you're also intelligent and smart, and you're so aware of what's happening in the world, that there are plenty of opportunities outside a law firm and outside a court if you want to pursue them and if you are passionate about that. And so thank you again, all of you. When I come to Mumbai, which, right now with the entire, travel precautions, but I would definitely come back to law school, and hopefully by that time, we have some classes in person and things have improved as well. And so thank you all. Enjoy your weekend, and also thank you to the faculty as well, always very supportive, and regards to Sunita Masani as well. And have a lovely weekend, all of you. And please do fill the feedback form. It's only for the advantage of all of you, because next time, your own friends, they know how to make the session even better, and, how they can provide better content, I guess.
Yes.
So thank you, everyone. And so bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.